high-octane racing action with the Duel Test Drive 2. The Duel Test Drive 2, which we're only going to refer to as Test Drive 2 from now on, is a 1989-1990 game from Accolade, starting off on the ST. Test Drive 1 was trying to be a kind of real-world racing game, but you only ever raced against the clock. Test Drive 2, you actually race against one other car, although you do get options to do time trials. We look at the ST version. It does have all this sampled audio in the introduction.
Accolade presents.
Scratchiness aside, you might mistake the audio for the Amiga version, or an Amiga version. Lots of legal problems with this game. Apparently, Distinctive Software and Accolade fell out. Distinctive Software being the developers of the game, Accolade the publishers. Seemingly must have all been resolved for them to get Test Drive 2 out though. So the menu screen comes up. You can race against the clock as you can in Test Drive 1, race against the computer. Scenery disc if you've got it, and a scenery disc may also add other cars as well. Yes, they wanted to sell you what would be called, I suppose, DLC these days, but in those days it was just simply buy another disc with a load of extra stuff on it. And yes, there's going to be a lot of disc swapping if you've got an ST or Amiga, because even when you select the cars, it wants you to swap the discs. Now, on the home micro versions, you get two cars by default in the game included, a Ferrari and a Porsche, if you will, unless you have the expansion discs, in which case you get things like the Lotus Esprit and Lamborghini Countach added as well. You'll see that on the PC version. If you've got the console versions, SNES and Megadrive, then you get the Ferrari, the Porsche and the Lamborghini. Select your skill level. The first 4 levels give you an automatic gearbox. From there on in, you're on a manual gearbox, where you can very easily redline and blow your engine up. As the ST chugs away at the disk drive. Yes, I've shortened the loading quite considerably because there was a lot of waiting around with Test Drive 2 and there was a lot of disc swapping as well. Here we are in our Ferrari. And off we go. And you can see it's a little bit different from your average racing game because it's a cross between a traditional game and something like hard driving. All the sprites are 2D. And yeah, now that car looks quite far away, but clearly it wasn't. It was quite close. So you've got to learn very quickly how this game judges distance and sizing of things. You're driving along in this real-world environment. There's a police car there. He's pulled someone over. Now, the police can pull you over for speeding, so you have to keep an eye on the speed limit. But the reality is, to win the game, you need to be constantly speeding. Police catch up with you, you'll get a fine and be held up as well. Amiga version. Same deal as the ST. Select your skill level. Let's go for rookie. And that defines the amount of traffic on the road, how good the competitor is, and if you're using a manual or automatic gearbox. So you see our speed limit there is 55 miles an hour, which we're already way over. Although I think the other difficulty is the speed limits, I think, are in miles per hour and the speedo's reading kilometres, because clearly this car can't do 340 miles an hour. So, I mean, any pretense of obeying the speed limit in the game is just, yeah. Little dot on the steering wheel helps you judge where you're steering. The Amiga version is a lot more controllable than the ST version. I found the ST version quite choppy when you're going around corners. Yes, this is a faster Amiga, of course it is, but it's more than that. There is some difference here that, makes the ST version quite hard. PC version, running this on a Dell 486, the game is clock locked to run at the ideal speed of machine, which apparently is a top-end 286. So it looks very similar to the Amiga and ST version, but with EGA colours. I think this is running an EGA, 16 colour EGA. But at least you get the advantage of running it from a hard disk, which means you don't have all the disk swapping once the game is installed. The game cost $24.95 on the Amiga and PC, assuming it also did on the ST, but I can't check that. And on the PC here, I've got all the expansion discs loaded in, so I've got loads more cars and tracks to choose from. That's just how the game came to me. So what we're going to do is choose a different set of scenery for the PC. We will go with the California available on the expansion discs. And I'm going to be driving in a Lotus versus a Porsche, or Porsche, depending on who your pronunciation. And off we go. And as I say, although I'm running on a 486, they appear to have locked the game, so if you're on a faster PC, it just runs at the ideal speed. I've been looking at someone playing this on a high-end 286. Same speed. Absolutely same speed. New Computer Express reviewed this game in 6th of May 1989 edition and were not impressed with this PC version. They liken the opening music to being something played on a Peruvian nasal flute being played by a drunk with a runny nose. And the police have caught up with me here. And look, I've got a fine for going 78 miles an hour. New Computer Express also said the game was a good idea, poorly implemented. The game is difficult to control and the display is difficult to decipher. Save up your money and get yourself a driving lesson. We're driving on this ravine section, which I actually think is quite nice. And you do have to overtake the other cars on the road, which is something you don't see on other racing games. You have two-way traffic, and that's quite unique. I think Hard Driving was probably the first game I played with two-way traffic. C64 version, another version coded in the USA, not a UK port. And obviously, being a USA game, ideally it's supposed to be run off a floppy disk. And yeah, there will be a little bit of waiting around while it does its thing. And if you're wondering about the name Test Drive and thinking, I've seen that name in a recent game. Yes, the series is still going. Yes, it must be the longest running series featured on ChinnyVision since Doctor Who. And there is apparently a new Test Drive game coming out soon. Doesn't really have much relation to these older games, but there you go. It's still running. But you get all the same detail you get on the PC, ST and Amiga version. When you select your car, you get a little thumbs up and the car drives off, which is a really nice touch. And it's not as cut down as you think it might have been. You might have been expecting something that was one-way traffic only. It is, however, very choppy, and overtaking is difficult as a result. But no, they've gone for the full thing here, and yeah, you will have to watch yourself with the other cars. Draw distance isn't fantastic on, well, any of these versions, to be honest. And coming over from that PC version, the handling takes a little bit of getting used to. Still got the dot on screen. You have a speed radar gun detector on top left there that flashes if the police have their radar detector out. On the other versions, but seemingly not on this version, you also get dots at the top of the screen that show you where you are on the course and your relation distance with the other car. Sinclair Spectrum version. And off we go. And there's the other car just pulling out in front of me. On the easier levels, the other car is quite easy to evade. Oh, and apparently I've touched that cactus despite being nowhere near it. Yes, the thing is on the Spectrum version, if you thought the distances were a bit messed up on the other versions, then you ain't seen nothing yet. Keep away from everything. Keep absolutely away from everything, because you will hit something that's basically miles away. MSX version, coded by New Frontier. I'm presuming done in Spain, looking at the name of the coder. Is that a Spanish name? And yes, it is the Spectrum version. I think this is the Ferrari I'm in at the moment. And you do get the dot on the MSX Spectrum version at the top there. Just see how it separates out as the other car pulls away from me there. And that's really useful. Just shows you how far ahead you are or behind of the other car, which is helpful in terms of how much you're going to be speeding on the road. Say you've got a police speed trap coming up. Quite close to that car. Oh no, I've hit him. The game has lives as well, so you get an extra life every segment of the game you complete. In this case, it's 2.1 miles to the petrol station, and yes, you need to refuel your car after every couple of miles. Amstrad CPC version. Fully expecting a Specky port, although we don't have that on the menu and loading screen. But no, they could have gone for a lazy port, but we appear to have a proper Amstrad version, which is a nice change. Now over to the Sega Megadrive.
Ballistic presents.
Had to order this in. But it's not a cheap cartridge to get hold of either, and I got a cartridge only for £7. If you want a box version, £15–20. And it's not a standard Megadrive box either, it's a cardboard box. And so these console versions, the Megadrive version we're going to look at first, have kind of the expansion disc built in because you have extra things like extra scenery and so on. Still only 3 cars to choose from. And off we go. And it's quite unlike the ST and Amiga versions. They've started again. Megadrive version didn't get very good reviews though. Over to the SNES.
Test Drive 2.
And the SNES version apparently came out in 1993, so it's an old game by then. But what we're going to get, because it looks different to the Megadrive version, it's something, yeah, it's something very different. Look how smooth that road is. And the scaling, are they using some kind of Mode 7 scaling here? I mean, it's not super smooth scaling, but it's certainly far better than, well, any other version. The handling's different, it's all much smoother. Some people say this is a different game. It's not a different game. They've just updated it and... Oh, there's the... You actually get beeping for the radar as well in this version. Complaints about this version include that if the police catch you, they slow you down so much that you will... And there's a petrol station you have to stop there way beyond it, so... If the police catch you, you basically won't win the stage. So that's what happens. You get to the petrol station, you stop. On most versions, you have to be on the right-hand side of the road as well and stop in time, or you lose a life. You get some stats, and then you go on to the next stage. I mean, I know supercars use a lot of fuel, but having to refuel every couple of miles is a little bit excessive. It's so much smoother on the handling. It feels so different to all the other versions. Draw resistance still isn't great, but it's better. It's better, and because it's smoother, it just reacts better. But it's still not a game with lots of good reviews. Pull over on the Amiga version. So done quite well there, but I am using a cheat on this version as well. So I've got basically infinite lives, so I can keep on continuing. Unless you crash into a police car, at which point it's game over. And off we go again, but it's so choppy coming over from that SNES version. Especially this ravine section with the tunnels. Now don't fall off the side of the ravine because you will obviously fall to your death. So that gear lever thing beneath it, I don't know what that's supposed to be. Well, I know it's supposed to be a gear lever with the kind of leather thing beneath it, but it looks like a right mess. .6 miles to go, 30 mile hour limit through here, but clearly I'm not doing that. Oh! And the ravine will suddenly end, and then you'll be back on normal land. That is the petrol station. An extra lane opens up, you pull over to the right and stop. That's important. Too far left, you will lose a life. Overshoot, you will lose a life. Just take it easy through here. 0.4 miles to go. 0.3. And the other car's already ahead of me, so it should be waiting there. Yet they're ahead of me. I've pulled over and I've lost this section. Many of the reviews of the time say how the game's innovative, but it's not an awful lot of fun. And here I am on the PC version where it is more fun because it's faster. You have to time these overtakes and just judge it and not crash into the back of the other vehicles, which move incredibly slowly. When you get stuck behind the other vehicles, you realise they're doing like 10 miles an hour or something ridiculous. And when you're going really fast, there isn't a particularly great sensation of the huge amount of speeds these supercars are supposed to be going. So it's all in the implementation, really, because it's a different, novel concept. And it's supposed to be a more grown-up adult game, and it does it better than, the car chase as well. I've got a police car chasing me at the moment, and that's quite cool, but it just doesn't quite get there. It has that similar problem with games like Toyota Celica Rally, where you've got that more realistic driving, but ultimately you're doing this, you're not really having that much fun doing it. If the police cars were a bit more aggressive, I don't know, you were constantly trying to escape them. Perhaps. But, yeah, there's just a point. I'm coming to the petrol station now, gas station. Pull over. And we stop. Oh, just do it in time. Missed the gas station. I didn't stop in time. And that missing the gas station without any lives, game over. C64 version where I've lost a life and I'm just carrying on there. Still 1.2 miles to the petrol station. It's really become choppy on these tunnel sections. It's horrible now. It's really become... Whereas on the normal sections it's okay, it's now become quite a horrible thing to play. And the courses are the same as the ST Amiga and PC version. But yeah, it doesn't really... Petrol station appears out of nowhere. We pull over. We stop. And that was horrible. The Spectrum version, which does load in 48K if you've got a 48K machine, is really cut down as well. Remember that C64 version originates on disc, and so on the Spectrum, although you've got a little bit of speed, you don't get a lot of scenery or the variation. You just get this barren landscape the entire time. On the plus side, when you want to overtake, you can just go off the circuit, and you don't seem to get much of a penalty for doing that. Same on the MSX. It's an approximation of Test Drive 2. It's nice to have a game with traffic that comes the other way, but you can't really say much else about it. It's still not really much fun. And again, CPC, same criticism as the MSX and Spectrum version. Nicer graphics, but still very empty and bland, and you can still just drive off the circuit to overtake the other cars. Shame, really. 0.4 miles to go on the Amstrad for the petrol station. Oh, and one of the other things on many of these versions... Oh, I've hit something, but I don't quite sure what one of the other cars. One of my criticisms across many of these versions is the opponent car can seemingly just drive through other traffic. Just nuts. You have to avoid them, but they get away with it. Back on the Megadrive. Bit of music that drives things along, but for my £7 on this cartridge, I'm thankful I didn't go for a full box version, because I don't think I'll be coming back here anytime soon. It's got a bit of speed about it, but then the police car's after me now. But there's so many better games you could be playing than this. Can I overtake the opponent there? Oh no, you see how small he is? I'm miles away. No, no, no. I'm trying to think of positives. If there was a head-to-head option using a serial link on some of these versions, that could be quite fun on the ST, Amiga and PC, but no, none of that. SNES version, let's select the hardest course. And we do have rain and weather on the SNES version, and this smoothness. But it's still not an awful lot of fun. I mean, this level just reminds me of the... Well, it reminds me of the Elminster bypass on the A303. It's just A303 simulator, isn't it? Here we are, just going down the A303 on the wrong side of the road at Ilminster. And here's the little chef as we stop. Oh, there's the police. Yeah, if the police arrive just behind you at the petrol station, it doesn't matter. Pump you up. And now we get snow. And the gear stick looks even worse on the SNES. What's that thing on the right supposed to be? It looks like some kind of grey brain with a ball in it. Who drew that? And the police have caught up with me. I've done that deliberately on the SNES. And you can actually bump them without game over.
Darn!
But look how long this takes and how far the other car gets ahead of me. On the other versions, it slows down the other car. So I'm waiting to pull away. When the police car gets out of view, I can now pull away. But that, I won't be able to catch the opposition car now. And it's a little bit game breaking. The police cars are supposed to slow you down on that original PC version, but it doesn't quite. On the SNES, it's like, no, it doesn't work. Here we are back on the Amiga. And remember, this is an accelerated Amiga. The game is running faster than it does on a standard A500. it chugs pretty much the same as it does on the ST if you run this in an A500. Oh, I've been overtaken. That Ferrari's getting in there now. I'm going to be... Oh, police car. Been pulled over in the middle of the... Oh, car won't stop. Oh dear. That's an instant game over. PC version. And this is the California scenery disc. So I need to keep that in mind, just not the same tracks. But you know what? Even with the scenery disc, it's still the same game. You're just paying for a few extra graphics and different tracks. All the problems are still here. It's just a different coat of paint, basically. And as you go through the game, the courses do get longer. So they start off just under 2 miles. This one is about 6 miles. Oh, crashing out of the car, game over. You are dead and you lost the game. I think, well, being dead would be bad enough, wouldn't it? You might as well return the sports car and get a Volvo and a Cocker Spaniel. C64 version through the ravine here. I say ravine, it's like a cliff one side and a drop the other side. I'm saying it's a ravine. 3 miles to go. The road has widened out. And if you're watching this and thinking you want to see more of this kind of thing, well, check out the other videos on the channel. About 385 of them. We also have ChinnyVision 2 with rough and ready videos that look at various things that I don't cover on the main channel. And there's also Discord and a Patreon as well that gives you exclusive videos and previews and various other things for just, well, about $1 a month really. If you want to join in the fun over there, it's much appreciated if you can. Spectrum version, and completed another identical course, all very barren. Congratulations on making the record books, and you won this ground and you are winning the game. But also, congratulations, you've completed the final course. That's it. After 5 levels on the MSX CPC and Spectrum, that's it. That's the game. 5 nearly identical looking levels. You can go play it again on a harder setting, but that's it. On the C64, you can add the scenery discs as well. Here we go, got one of the European scenery discs. We're in the Netherlands, and there are lots and lots of windmills. Finally, on the Amiga, we're finishing the game. Didn't win this level, but we should get the end game sequence now. There's 2 end game sequences, one that you will never see, and the one we're going to see. Because I've been arrested, the female police officer will now cuff me, but apparently she kisses or hugs me if I've never been caught by the highway patrol in the entire game, but apparently that's pretty much impossible to see. The Duel Test Drive 2. Well, it's an interesting concept, but it falls down on all of these versions, really. We'll start with the PC, ST and Amiga, and well, the PC plays better because it's faster. If you've got a fast enough PC, the top end 286 or better, at least you'll get the frame rate. But all these versions, while it's an innovative, novel game, are uninspiring, and it just leaves you feeling a bit empty. C64 version tries to ape those 16-bit versions and falls down just because it hasn't got the CPU grunt to do it. It's just asking too much of the 64. It just chugs far too much, and that's still got all those gameplay problems as well. Spectrum, Amstrad and MSX, well, at least the Amstrad version has a bit more colour than Spectrum and MSX versions, but all 3 versions are incredibly empty and you can just drive off the road to overtake other cars. Megadrive version is a curious hybrid, an updated 16-bit version, but it's still just as unsatisfying and no fun. SNES version is at least smooth, I will give it that. It's smooth and it handles far better. And you get weather and other interesting things as well. But it's not a SNES game. It really isn't a SNES game. They've just tried to give it another lick of paint to update it, but it still has all the same problems, even if the graphics handling is far, far better. ST and Amiga on stock systems, the game just chugs, I'm afraid. Far too slow and not much fun. Look at that ST version. It's the same on the Amiga on a stock A500. If you do have an accelerated machine, the game is more playable. Overall, Accolade tried to make a grown-up game, but ultimately it really is about as interesting as driving down the A303 in traffic on a wet Thursday.